On the board here, we've got a depiction of boom nozzle spacing at 1/2 metre, 50 centimetres. I've drawn actually the overlap that we'd expect to see from a nozzle operating, and then I've got a 25 centimetre off target line and a 50 centimetre off target line. As you can see, if we travel too close to the stubble spacing, to the stubble height, at 50 centimetre spacings, if our boom gets to within 25 centimetres of the target, our deposition or application is not going to be having enough overlap. So we'll end up with a wave in our application. At a minimum, with air induction nozzles, if you're using those in stubble, you have to be at least 50 centimetres above the stubble height to give enough overlap to ensure that you at least maximise your deposition into the stubble. Preferably 60 or 65 centimetres above the stubble height would be more advantageous. Allowing even 60 centimetres above the stubble height will ensure that we get good deposition even at the top of the stubble. That will enable us enough penetration and droplet movement on the way through to ensure a better deposition at the ground surface. Now that's not a problem with where most of your booms are sitting, because you're probably at 70 or 80 centimetres. But if you're not, 60 odd centimetres or thereabouts above a high cut stubble, you then start to run into trouble on this 2 centimetre repeatability. So get your sprayer parked, check your lowest speed, your lowest pressure out, and see what your width is at that height, and then think back to how close you're trimming it to your GPS. Okay, in the last run of training we've been doing in Spray Safe and Save, we've been actually looking at spray technique and some concepts that we've got to consider when we think about our paddocks. Today, most applicators will spray in straight lines, obviously relying on GPS. Historically, a grower would come in the gate, drive around in circles, and by the end of the day, had built quite a wide buffer zone between them and potentially whatever's next door. Now with spraying in straight lines, we enter a paddock and we may potentially be next to the boundary all day as we run our straight lines, up and back, down the paddock. Never really getting that far away from the boundary area or something that potentially is sensitive. There is a few problems with doing this. If we continue to go in the gate, which is what we're going to do, we're going to have a starting point, and we start and drive every time we enter that paddock on the same line or the same direction, we are doing everything exactly the same with our spray unit. So we start here and we possibly run out here. If we're always using the one water rate, we're always running out in the one spot. Problem for a sprayer that has to then prime again to take off again when we consider section control. Prime flow or boom reticulation will assist with some of these issues. We would put it to a grower to consider mixing up the direction that you drive on the 1AB line. So if we've started here with a roundup application and we were coming with a double knock, we would suggest to start at the other end of that line and drive in the opposite direction so that we're covering the actual crop or weed from the opposite side. So we're mixing up what we're doing. And it does pay to consider never starting from the one place more than once in a year so that you actually mix the paddock up. If we continue to drive exactly the same direction, every time you hit the bump and the boom does a deflection, that's a miss in the one spot, and that will be built on as we go through the year. Back to our paddock, we look at stubble and stubble penetration. Who's got a 12 metre seeder? Right, wider. So how wide? 14? So how many passes with the seeder do you do at the end, the headland?
2. So we've got 28 metres there, right, with the stubble running that way. How many passes with the spray unit? If you're doing a headland, do you do 1 pass with the spray unit or 2? Do a couple of laps around. So the second lap around, with that stubble running that way, the second lap around we're at a challenge when we're trying to say get trefoil into stubble. Because now if you look that way, up that stubble, all you can see is a wall of stubble. When you're driving down the stubble, you actually can see some dirt. And you've got to keep in mind with these air induction jets, basically, they don't bounce as much. So that's a standard coarse droplet. That's an air induction droplet with less bounce. Okay, what I've prepared here is a spray plan for spraying trefoil into stubble, which is, in my opinion, I believe is an ideal nozzle for the situation. I'm opting for a nozzle that's non-air inducted, so that when it tends to hit, there's probably more chance that it's going to rattle down through the stubble. The nozzle I've selected is a TT, Turbo T-Jet 11004, so it's red in colour. Here I have 100 litres per hectare as my target rate. I'm operating at 20 kilometres per hour and I have a half a metre nozzle spacings. The boom width is 36 metres with 72 nozzles on the sprayer. This requires me to have a nozzle that's doing 1.66 litres per minute. So that puts me at an 04 nozzle running 3.2 bar on average. If I go and look at the T-Jet catalogue, at 3.2 bar for 1.66, I'm running a coarse spray quality. And that's coarse without the air induction, so it's coarse with a little bit of energy involved. At 100 litres, that gives me an ability to slow down to 2 bar with the Turbo T, because it is a wider fan angle and it will not corrupt as badly down there at 2 bar, giving me a slow down speed of 15.48, average speed of 20, and if I allow the nozzle to get up to 4 bar, which is coarse on the boundary of medium, I'm now running at 21.84 kilometres per hour. That setup there gives good water rate and the ideal droplet size for penetration down into the stubble.